You can see I'm using a white oil pastel to create a resist, and then this gives the effect of light reflecting off the water or in the sky. That's the aim anyway. And I'll move on to using, this is Payne's Grey ink, slightly diluted. What I'm really after is the effect of fast changing mood, like the scudding clouds and the sort of tides, the waves incoming and outgoing. And that's what I'm trying to be free and loose and spontaneous about. Easier said than done. And then I move on to sort of trying to capture the movement of the wind and the birds and the waves. This is the neat Payne's Grey ink just dropped in, and using the dropper as a pencil just to highlight darker areas, and also to give sort of different effects when it dilutes into the still wet diluted ink. Now dropping in neat Indigold ink. It was one of the inks I bought from the old mill up in Palmackie, and it's made from the forage materials. And then I'm also highlighting as well with little dabs of yellow oxide ink from Liquitex, just to give hints of the colours of the seaweed and the lichens on the rocks and draped over the coast. I then move on to sheets of paper after I've sort of done a few in the sketchbook. Again, starting out the same, using the white oil pastel as a resist. It's interesting here though, if you sort of look, you can see how, especially on the sort of, not so much in the sky area, but now I sort of start to get a bit more tentative with the strokes and the brush. And that's possibly because although I quite might like the sky that I've done, I'm not liking this bottom bit at all. But we have to carry on. Here I'm just dropping in some of the sea green ink made from the forage materials from the old mill in Palmackie. And again, using the neat Payne's Grey and the dropper as a pencil, really highlighting areas I think sort of, I'm imagining the coastline with the rocks and the rock pools, and using it as well neat, as I say, to highlight darker areas, the shadows. And I've got so far now, and I know that I'm starting to fiddle. I've dropped in some of the Indie Gold ink, some of the sea green. I've used the Payne's Grey Neat. I will then go on to use some of the yellow oxide ink as well, as again to highlight the sort of, there you go, the different sort of lichens on the coast. But I do get to a point now where I probably should have just stopped. I've just fiddled now for the next few minutes. And while I'm waiting for that one to dry, I will start again on a fresh sheet of paper. Using the same techniques, the same colours, I'm all the while trying to capture this sense of space, the energy of the landscape. Still, as you can see, slightly tentative with the brush strokes, trying to go larger, trying to cover more of the paper to give that effect of the moving sky. And then to start on the sort of shoreline, the coastline, thinking of the bay, the inlet, the rocks, the rock pools. I keep going like this. I'll work over, several sheets at a time, as many as I can fit in the kitchen, over all the worktops and the floor. And all the while I am really trying to capture the sense of movement in the landscape, the moving clouds, as I say, the tides, as well as the sort of little nuances in the different textures and shades on the rocks. And that's how I work. I hope you've enjoyed this little insight.